What is going on, guys? It's your boy back with another video. I want to do a quick one with respect to your time. As always, it's a Light No Fire video. This is the new game announced from Hello Games, the creators of No Man's Sky. They admitted that they've been working on it about 5 years now, in conjunction with No Man's Sky. So I expect a lot. I have a lot that I want to say. The game could go so many different directions, but I want to highlight what the game is already, what we know about it already, and sort of expand on, what I think the next critical steps will really be to propel this game into the limelight. Now, I want to keep doing these videos to keep the hype up, but we just don't know too much about when the game will be released. We don't have a release date or anything like that, and we don't know which consoles it will be on. Most people are predicting, some beautiful shots there, that it will be a next-gen type of situation. Being that the fidelity is so high, right, look at this, right? Wow. We are looking at some beautiful stuff. Even just the way the little particle effects of the fluff is floating across the field, right? You can even see when the dragon takes off, there's wind physics that affect the ground. There is a lot of attention to detail here, and so I guess, I don't know if the previous generations will be able to handle it at the capacity the developers want the game to be handled, right? That's a hit or miss for some people. Ideally, in a perfect world, they make it so that it can be downscaled, so that it can be appropriate or sort of assimilated into the last gens. But of course, right, I do want to sort of highlight that this game is beautiful, right? There is a lot of demanding, I would say, network latency or LAN demands, right? This is, I actually don't know what I'm even talking about, but there's going to be a lot of bandwidth being used to run a game like this. And so I wonder how good the multiplayer will actually be, and to the extent of which you can expand that multiplayer. Like, can I be playing with multiple people grouped up with me, and we engage in some significant way with a group of other players? Maybe it's a rival group, maybe we have to fight, or maybe we're contesting a plot of land, right? We're like, hey, we want this plot of land as well. I have a lot of questions as to if PvP will even be a part of the game at all. A lot of players don't want that, and I totally fully understand, and I would not imagine that Hello Games is ever going to sort of release this game without an option for a single player driven experience, right? A experience that you want to get the full experience of this game without having to rely on other people being online, right? And we see beautiful games like Baldur's Gate and what they've done with NPC management and sort of the they just sort of took the role-playing genre and turned it on its head and was like, this is what we expect. So will Hello Games, being that they've been working on it for 5 years, be able to implement some of that Baldur's Gate magic? We'll be able to control multiple NPCs. Like, say, that dragon and, those two NPCs in front of us now, or a few of them, can we assign them to fly with us? Can we give them a target to fly to? Maybe they fly to our other base located far away and they grab resources from that base and bring it back to our newer base, right? Are we going to be able to enlist NPCs in that regard? That would be super duper cool. And I think it would be a great solution, being that, not everyone wants to play online. I get that. It would provide players that profound experience, and it would also allow players to feel very important in a role. If you are replacing one of those NPCs, well, then now the human input, right, needs to be more efficient, right? Ideally, right, a player replacing one of your NPCs would be more efficient at that job or that task, right? So it would always incentivize you to branch out, and because it works that way in the real world, with more people, more power, more leverage. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but in the real world, it kind of works that way. If you have more people on your team, things are usually easier. So that's just a question I have. Now, the second thing that I have brought up in a previous video is like the management of how we travel, right? Are there going to be, is there a limitation on dragons, right? Because, like, if there isn't any sort of limitation whatsoever on dragons, I worry they invalidate boats, and other vehicles. Because why would I use a slower fashioned boat to transport my stuff across the lake when all that stuff could be put on the back of a dragon and flown directly to my base, for example, right? I would imagine, first thing that comes to mind is sort of like a weight restriction. Maybe when you're on your flying mounts, you can't carry quite as much. So maybe there is a huge incentive to use boats to transport a lot of materials across perhaps just a small body of water, or eventually cross the ocean and explore the ocean islands. I imagine that would be a little bit more efficient if you're going to loot things and you're going to try to find items and bring all those items back. A boat would probably be better. But then again, that does sort of stretch the imagination because it's like, well, it's a huge dragon. It could probably carry as much as a boat could carry. But then it's like, well, 999 stone ore or whatever probably doesn't fit on the back of a dragon. It probably doesn't fit on a boat either, but it makes a little bit more sense, and we can more easily believe that and become immersed in the world that way. By the way, thank you so much for being here. Like, you have no idea. Thank you. And the other thing, or I guess a few more things, is like, well, actually, this is a great shot right now. I was just going to say, like, the terraforming of the land. And more importantly, the perimeters of your base. How will the perimeters of your base interact with other perimeters, right? What is the limit? How close can you build your base to another player's base? Obviously, we've learned from No Man's Sky. Hello Games has had a lot of perspective build in that regard, where they can be like, yeah, well, this is how the general player is going to behave. This is what the general player wants to do. We need to restrict the player from doing anything detrimental to other players, things like that. In No Man's Sky, there was, of course, the legendary problem of, you know, you could build your base right next to someone, and then you could sort of glitch build within into their parameter, from what I understand. There was a lot of network issues in that regard where bases were actually set up, at least at the start. I don't want to misrepresent the game, because at least at the start, these are the myths and legends I've heard. Personally, I haven't gone through so much stuff like that. I haven't been through so much other than maybe like my friends randomly disconnecting, or perhaps you know, I can't see their freighter even though they summon the freighter into the system and it's right in front of them. Maybe they go and land on their freighter, but I still can't see it, or there isn't an icon for it. Things like that are really annoying, but that's probably the worst that I've experienced. So as we can see through many of these beautiful shots, right, it's gonna be a dynamic world. Like, it's gonna be a world where there's some places that are less ideal and there's some places that are more ideal, and I wonder how important, like, how much that'll be leveraged and how much your actual location really dictates how your playthrough sort of shapes up, right? It would be a little bit of a shame if the resources on the world, whatever they may be, maybe it's just bodies of water being critical for transportation or something. I don't want to feel restricted to have to build on the very edge of a lake or at the mouth of a river that branches off into another river. You know, I don't want to feel compelled to have to do that, but it also definitely makes sense. It would be interesting too, for at least for me, being that we have a whole globe, there's some areas that are deemed like wilderness or something like that. Kind of like how RuneScape is. Like, you can enter it, sure, but you're on your own, and if you die, you die, right? PvP enabled, right? I wonder, or my favorite example actually is the Elder Scrolls Online, which I know it has a bad rep for, mainly, in my opinion, the monetization of the game was pretty terrible, and just how egregious the cash shop was and all that, and you have to buy the $15 crafting bag or you basically can't play the game. They did that pretty well with their center PvP area. There was the center area, I believe it was called Cyrodiil, and the capital that everyone's fighting over is sort of in the center of that. So if you're like the emperor of the land, you need to capture and have at least majority control of Cyrodiil and actually physically go there and become physically crowned the emperor. There's actually one person that does do that. I find that to be completely dope. Like, that's completely awesome and interesting from a developer's point of view. You could do a lot with that kind of idea. It would be interesting anyway if No Man's Sky had almost like a monarch type system where certain players, they do certain remarkable achievements, can have a certain status attached to them, right? This is sort of just a random tangent, but but it would definitely add to that immersion. I know a lot of players would want to be the first in the world to do this, the first in the world to do that. Whether it's just walk across the whole globe, which I know a lot of people are going to just do day one, which I find pretty funny. But there's a handful of people that are going to buy the game and they're just going to walk in a direction because they want to see, right? They want to see that in action, be the first to document it, right? Maybe these dungeons. So this is a good transition. I think that item collection in this game is going to be the most important thing. Meaning, like, I want there to be a sense of novelty to the items, a sense of special uniqueness, right? Like, I talk about the shiny Pokemon theorem in one of my previous videos about this game, right? No matter what Pokemon game, like, if you get into a wild encounter, you're like, ah, dang, this is annoying, I have to deal with this wild Pokemon, just press A, press A, press A. Well, at least you can look at the Pokemon, and there's at least a chance that that Pokemon will be shiny. So, no matter what exchange, like no matter what wild encounter you face in a Pokemon game, whether you prepare for it, you plan for it, or whether it's accidental, there will always be that chance. And it's exciting because it makes every encounter feel that way, right? Feel important. Even though, of course, the vast majority, 99.9%, are going to be duds, right? You're not going to get that shiny Pokemon. But if you keep playing for enough time, boom, you'll get it. Now, I want something like that to be in this game. Maybe it's shiny dragons, right? Let's just say there's shiny dragons in the game. Maybe you can breed dragons by finding your favorite dragons. That would be really cool, by the way, breeding and stuff like that. That would be awesome. Maybe they have a chance to have a baby. Maybe that egg has a 1 in 100,000 chance of being a shiny dragon egg. Well, if you play long enough, and if you're lucky enough, you might just get that golden ticket and you might go see Willy Wonka. You know what I mean? And that would be so dang cool. Or this wildebeest. Maybe the wildebeest has a chance to be shiny, and maybe you see them out in the world and you see a shiny wildebeest. And you just happen to go over a bend of a hill. You're like, I wonder what's in this field. What is that? Is that a shiny wildebeest? Oh my god. You run over to it. Boom. That's so cool. Very low chance. Like in Pokemon, it was 1 out of 5,000, and I want to say 28, or it was 5,280, or something like that. Those actually odds did get diminished, but I think that's about a perfect frequency because it's like rare enough that it's super duper special, but it's also just frequent enough that it happens to it happens to people. It happens, right? It's not like unheard of. People get shiny Pokemon all the time. Obviously, the games have implemented so many ways of doubling the odds, and there's like the shiny radar, and then you can like triple the effects, and then you can shiny link, you can shiny chain them. I did try to do the shiny chains one time. I remember in Diamond and Pearl for a long while, and I got so frustrated. I couldn't really figure out I was doing something wrong. Anyway, a little bit of a tangent. But I guess at this point in the video, look at this. Look at the base building, right? Look at the NPCs all doing certain tasks. Maybe you could enlist that NPC to go do that. That rabbit's running to go do something. You have to carry the wood with your hands. So weight restriction is definitely going to be an important factor in this game. In fact, I think it's going to dictate a lot of the gameplay loops. And I think that's awesome because I think that's realistic. And since it's an RPG, we need to stay within the realm of realism and have some sort of context, right? And it's just going to be a beautiful marriage of fantasy and then survival-based realism, right? It's going to be a beautiful game. I'm so excited, guys. I can't wait. I will keep you guys posted as soon as I find out anything more. We don't really know anything else, but I want to keep the hype up, so I'll keep videos like this coming out. I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, so if you're interested in that, please check out my deck techs. That would be super cool. And if you're interested in me at all, don't forget to like it and subscribe because I'll be putting out more content for you. You rock. Absolute legends out here. Great time to end the thing as we look at the logo for the final time. This does sort of allude to the Atlas, by the way. The Atlas in No Man's Sky. So I do predict there's going to be some connection between the two games. Anyway, guys, much love. I'll see you in the next one.